What is going on, everybody? AHS Rules back again with another video. We're here for another edition of Shooting the Breeze, the 17th edition. Potentially a very big edition because we have a lot of topics to get through, and I will apologize. This is a delayed version. Normally, I upload these on Thursdays, but this week I had a couple of reasons why I didn't. A, I felt like crap Thursday, and B, one of the main topics, I was waiting it out to let it develop a little bit more, and it has exploded, and we'll talk about that from the start. But I plan on uploading these again on Thursday, start next week. But now that the NBA is back, which is one of the main topics, it should be in the title of the video, I kind of have a good format for Shooting the Breeze. Because like I said, for Shooting the Breeze, it's just supposed to be random ass topics every week, or not even every week, but now because I want to do NFL predictions, I've done it weekly. Now that the NBA is back, there's a lot that's going to be going on with the NBA. I think it's going to be formatted NBA topics, NFL predictions, random wrestling stuff, or anything else. So this is going to be the first week of this, the rough draft version of it. So like I said, let's start with the NBA talk. Now, this is another thing. I'm going to say this probably every week. That way the message gets out there. But if you're a fan of any of the 30 teams in the NBA, let me know how you feel about your team in the comments down below. That way I kind of represent and understand the NBA fan base a little bit more. Because there's one thing that I hate when I watch other YouTube or just media in general and talk about the NBA is when they start talking about a team and then they proceed to say, who cares? So, for instance, like, if somebody's talking about the Charlotte Hornets and then they go on like a big spiel about the Charlotte Hornets and then they follow it up by saying, who cares? That bothers the hell out of me because every NBA team has a fan base. Whether it is large or small, it at least has a fan base. And there's some people out there that do care about those teams. So if you're a fan of any teams, comment how you feel about your teams down below. Like I said, I'll make sure to mention this every week. But like I said, for this first week, I won't be mentioning all 30 NBA teams because we would be here for a long-ass time. And I don't have the craziest or most detailed amount of notes, but here are my main points from this week in the NBA. So, also, like I said, I feel like crap. ROH TV review, if you watch, my nose started freaking... stuff was coming out. Boogers were coming out. Now, I did not pick my nose, but I did wipe it. So this time around, I do have a paper towel if necessary. I also have some ice water to feel a little better. Let me go ahead and sip. NBA talk. Good start for the Indiana Pacers, Orlando Magic, and Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, out of those teams, the Pacers have only played one game, but they won by scoring 143 points. So shout out to them. The Bruce Brown signing, while it still is a lot of money, he at least delivered in the first game of the year. Orlando Magic, a team that I am very high on, have won their first two games, that they could continue their winning ways. And the Oklahoma City Thunder, everyone expected a big jump from them, and their first two games were against two more veteran-present teams in the Chicago Bulls and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm pretty sure both of those games are on the... at least the Chicago game was on the road, and they were able to pick up the victories in those games. So I want to give a shout-out to those three teams because, again, they're mainly younger teams, and they are delivering it in their first couple of games. Continue to talk about the Thunder. I'm going to be referring to my awards predictions video a lot in this, but... in it, I predicted Victor Wembanyama to win Rookie of the Year. I think a lot of people have. And my main argument was I feel that the Thunder, having Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Shai being the main guy for the Thunder, might end up hurting Chet because at the end of the day, the Thunder have Shai. Where the Spurs, the main guy there is Wemby. He's also the one that's got all this freaking hype this year. But out of these first two games, I think the competition between these two for Rookie of the Year is going to be a lot closer than I was giving credit for. And I feel it would be more neck and neck by the time comes. So I want to give Chet his just desserts. So that's topic number 2. Number 3. Second to last time I'll be mentioning my award video prediction. I said Most improved player, you could probably find a nominee for each team, and I probably should. That might be a future video where I go through all 30 teams and who would be most likely to win the award for each team. I think that is a very good idea. But one person that completely slipped out of my mind and did not make it in there at all, and he had 2 great stellar first games. Jalen Duren, starting center for the Detroit Pistons. The main reason I'm giving him praise is I got him in the second to last round of my fantasy draft, and I was like, this is such a great pickup. He has delivered in those first 2 games, so I think Jalen Duren is making a great case for most improved player, and I think the main reason I neglected it is because I've heard so much talk about Cade Cunningham potentially winning the award, even though it's probably not the best person to win the award considering he was a number 1 overall pick, so I'm giving praise to Jalen Duren. Last time, I'll be mentioning my awards prediction video, and this one, Luka for Clutch Player of the Year. I predicted that, and out of the first 2 games, he has... I don't know how the hell he wouldn't win the award. We were basing off the first 2 games. My exact statement was, I've seen Luka in way too many clutch situations throw the ball up and make that and just have game winners. And in the first 2 games, now they were up 2 against the Spurs, and then he shot a 3, sealed the deal for him in the first game against the Spurs. And now, against the Brooklyn Nets, I just watched the highlights of it. The last 2 minutes, he hits 3 threes, one of which, the last one, Dorian Finney-Smith is all it, like defending him. He has to lean out of the way, throw the ball up, and make it. I literally, everything that I said has came true about Luka being Clutch Player of the Year. So I'm giving myself praise for that. Next, LeBron and Kevin Durant. I think that is the main highlight of this week, NBA-wise, is either seeing LeBron and Kevin Durant play for the first time in 5 years, or Damian Lillard's debut for the Spurs, or I just said for the Spurs, for the Bucks. I think LeBron and KD was a better highlight because it's a matchup we've waited 5 years for, and it delivered, and both of them delivered. But my main point for these 2 guys is that they're going to, if they have to continue what they're doing the rest of this year, they are going to be exhausted. Now, for Kevin Durant, in his defense, he's yet to play with Bradley Beal, and it definitely does not help the Suns that, hey, one of the main concerns for the team was injury history because all their main 3 guys have been, and I guess you could consider Nurkic in that now, have not played a lot of games in the past couple of seasons. And now, like I said, Bradley Beal's yet to play a game. Devin Booker only played 1 game. And Kevin Durant, who is the oldest out of all of them, has had to play 2 and carry the team on his back, mainly in that Laker game. Devin Booker did his part in the Warriors game. But, like I said, Kevin Durant, I'll give some slack because he hasn't played with Bradley Beal yet. But LeBron, supposed to be on a minutes restriction. That was the whole topic of game 1 where he was sitting out and they're like, oh, when's LeBron coming back? Well, he's on a minutes restriction. And then game 2 came around and it was ignored, but it's just like, you don't want to lose your first 2 games, and especially 2 national televised games against 2 teams that, hypothetically, if you make it to the end, you could potentially be facing those teams. Now, that being said, once the playoffs come around, we got a long time before the playoffs come around. These teams might look a little different once that time happens, but it's LeBron and KD. I think LeBron wanted to deliver and finish the story of that matchup, but it's definitely not the best for LeBron at his age to be doing what he does, but we should appreciate it while it is happening. Another topic. Friday night, there's a lot of loaded basketball. Like I said, we'd be here all night if I went through all of the action. But the one that slipped under the radar was last year's number 1 and number 2 seeded teams playing in the Western Conference. That being the Nuggets and Grizzlies. Now, I'm a Grizzlies fan. And I have to put bias aside because we're 0-2. The first game against the Pelicans was just, there was moments in it that were good, but it was more bad than good. Not enough on-ball defense. Definitely not enough rebounding. Way too much shooting the 3-ball. Last game, again, you're going against the defending champions. And you're now extra undermanned because Santi Aldama's yet to play. Luke Kennard gets injured in the first freaking game on a, I don't know if he got a concussion. He was in concussion protocol. But, you know, they ain't, like, we saw the moment it happened and there was no foul call, nothing. These referees, it's going to be something all year. The referees, they say nothing. But the Grizzlies, hopefully they can get back to their winning ways. But like I said, Friday, there's a lot of crazy basketball. We had 2 games going to overtime, and those weren't even the 2 national televised games. Those were playoff rematches between Celtics and Heat and Warriors Kings. So we had a loaded Friday night of action, but I wanted to make note of the number 1 and number 2 seed playing. A loud-ass car is outside. Hey, I'm trying to film here. I don't know if y'all hear that or not. If you do, I apologize. But last NBA topic, 8 teams. Now we're on to Saturday today. 8 teams have a back-to-back after just playing Friday night. Those teams include my Memphis Grizzlies, who lost to the Nuggets. I'm trying to do this all from memory. Let's see if I can do that. The Bulls, who defeated the Raptors in overtime. The Pistons, who defeated the Hornets. The Knicks, who defeated the Hawks. The Cavs, who lost to the Thunder. The Raptors, who lost to the Bulls. The Heat, who lost to the Celtics. And the Jazz, who defeated the Clippers. So, very interesting early on. The main reason I made note of this, and this will be the last NBA-related thing, but the Grizzlies, who played in Memphis, now have to travel all the way to Washington, D.C. to play their game today after already being undermanned. Like, okay, that seems a little bit crazy in my opinion, but that's what's happening. Like I said, the NBA season is back. We're not even a week in. It was just already been loaded and fun and a lot of stories going on. We still have this James Harden saga going on. And I think that's probably, if this is still going on in a week and nothing has really changed, I guess I'll talk about it more then. But, we're week 1 in. Like I said, this is a rough draft. I'll have to get more detailed with these, but these are my main highlights of so far of the NBA season. Now, it's not really small, but one wrestling related thing I want to get to before I get to my NFL predictions. Now, Crown Jewel is next week. I will provide my predictions at some point next week. So there's no WWE related topic this week. It is an AEW related topic, and it's all about one man and his many storylines that he has going on. That's MJF. Now, at the end of this year, I will be doing a WWE/AEW year-end awards, and I'm really looking forward to that. I used to do that back in the day, and when I used to do that, it used to just be WWE. I think I strictly only did WWE. I might have did ROH and Impact as well, but nowadays, we have AEW. Now, like I said, it's only going to be WWE and AEW because those are the main 2 companies that I talk about on the channel. But one of the awards will be Male Wrestler of the Year. And MJF, late in the year, is making a great case for him to win that award. Now, I'm going to mention some nominees off the top of my head in no order, but Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, probably my favorite and the guy I would have to win it, Gunther, Orange Cassidy, Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, and MJF. Now, MJF didn't have the best argument out of those guys because him and Roman Reigns was just lump them together because it's kind of obvious. While they are world champions and they've held the titles all year, which I just put that together, they haven't consistently defended those titles. But now, MJF in the last half of this year has done that, and he has a loaded schedule and just a bunch of stuff in front of him. So, this week specifically I'm not going to say specifically on Dynamite, but a lot of this was based on Dynamite. But he defeated Juice Robinson to retain his Dynamite Dozen Diamond Ring. Dynamite Diamond Ring, I guess, is the actual terminology for it. He has a ROH Tag Team title match, which I review ROH every week. I sometimes forget he is ROH Tag Team Champions. But he has an ROH Tag Team title match now against the Gun Club at Full Gear. He still has a match against Jay White at Full Gear, which may or may not be for the World Championship. That will be discussed in a couple of seconds. Samoa Joe, who he defeated last month or 2 months? Last month at Grand Slam, wants to help him out. But, he's only wanting to help him out if he can get a match out of it. He may or may not be friends with the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass, which I would lean toward he's not friends with the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass. Wardlow, who just recently returned, is coming after MJF, which realistically is the right thing that should be happening because, A, he mentioned on his promo list this week, hey, I've beaten MJF before. And now he's trying to parade around here, acting like he's a nice guy, when, hey, I've been around him for all these years. He ain't no nice guy. That makes sense. But, as you can see, a lot has continued to pile on. We still have to worry about who this masked devil character is, because I think there's enough evidence out there that it is not MJF, and that they may or may not be targeting MJF, may be with MJF. I'm not going to discuss who I think is yet. But last but not least, the main reason I'm talking about it this week, we have a big time matchup tonight on Collision. MJF versus Kenny Omega. As of right now, we have 340 days as AEW World Champion, that being MJF, versus 346 days as AEW World Champion in Kenny Omega. It's a big time matchup. And like I said, I'm going to need some help from the audience. But I think, prior to last week's backstage segment, I do not believe that these two men have ever interacted on screen in AEW. I'm trying to think it out in my head, but it's just like, these are two guys that have been there since the first show. And I don't know of a time period where they've had a match together or just anything that interlapped. Like, early on, when MJF was involved with Cody Rhodes and the Elite, Kenny Omega was never involved in those segments. Even, like, one specifically was when Cody Rhodes got the 10 lashes from MJF, a show that I was there for. Kenny Omega ain't come out for that. And then, just like, when I look at these storylines that, like, went on, I don't think these two men have ever interacted. And for, like, 5 years in, for two guys that have been there since then, I think that's a little bit crazy. And now they have this big time matchup. The one thing that sucks is I don't think there's a chance for Kenny Omega to win. You already have planned this big world title match with MJF and Jay White. Now, while there's still a lot that could be at stake there, with the world title not being involved, I don't think that's the realistic moves to happen here. I do think this will be a very good match. Like I said, when I was talking about my potential male wrestler of the years, these are two guys that were nominated for it. But it's just a very big time matchup that I will be tuning in to. So that is MJF's busy schedule. I only think that's going to continue to get busier. But now we're on to the main event of Shooting the Breeze, my Week 8 NFL predictions. Now, I did terrible last week. I'm not going to go through them. If you care enough, you will go back to watch. But it was my worst number. Screw it. I'll say it. I'm going to go back. I went 4 for 13. Not good. Not good. Now, one of those games was Patriots beating the Bills. I don't know anybody that picked the Patriots to win that game. So, I'll take the L. Now, I will say this. Speaking of the Bills, I normally film Shooting the Breeze on Thursday. And I realized, oh yeah, the main reason I film these on Thursday is that way I get my Thursday night football prediction out there. So, I have proof that I did pick the Bills to beat the Buccaneers because I posted on my YouTube community section, hey, Shooting the Breeze is going to be delayed this week, but I do have the Bills over the Buccaneers. So I at least have proof of picking the Bills in that game. And of note, I like talking about my fantasy football team. I have started Chris Godwin. Every week besides the bye week, I have started Chris Godwin. And I did not start him this week because he was questionable with a neck injury. And then I never really even saw him like get clear, like, yeah, he's going to play. But I'm like, I'll send him this week. There's a good chance he doesn't play that many snaps, etc. He scores a touchdown, has his best game of the season thus far. Also, someone who has consistently been on my bench, but, you know, anytime that I feel I would start him, I don't know what the hell I expect. Gabe Davis, same freaking thing. Now, besides the injury, but he scored a touchdown. It was definitely heartbreaking watching the Thursday night games. And not even heartbreaking, but it's just like, it's just, that's how fantasy football works. When you have a player on your bench, they're going to ball out. So, shout out to them. At least, like the Chris Godwin situation, I had a reason. I thought he wasn't going to get that much playing time because he was hurt. So, I'll live with that. But now we have a lot of NFL games. So, 32. So, we have 15 NFL games to predict because obviously 16, but one has already happened. No teams are on a bye this week, which I don't think is normal, but, you know, I'm not going to question it. And this is the last week before the trade deadline. Now, I don't think the NFL trade deadline is a big a deal as the NBA one is, but, you know, if something of note happens, I'll mention it next week. So we'll get to that when we get to that. So, also, last note, I keep putting off the damn predictions, but like I said, I like trying to get every team involved. Now, again, it's difficult because I don't think I could put every team in the thumbnail or video, or else it would just be a clusterfuck. But 7 weeks into the season, I have used different teams in the thumbnails, and I went through all the way to like week 10 and looked at the different matchups. I'm like, oh, I can get this team and this team here. That way, boom, it's different. And then it got to the week, it's going to be the Chiefs and Eagles, and I'm like, it's a Super Bowl matchup. I have to have that in the thumbnail. So in this week, I was going to put the Steelers and the Jaguars in the thumbnail, but I couldn't find a good enough graphic. And then I didn't want to mash something together because, you know, I put every time I find a thumbnail for my videos, I put it in the description, but I couldn't find anything. And so I went back and looked at the schedule. I'm like, the next biggest matchup is the Bengals and the 49ers, two teams that I've used before. And then I went and made the thumbnail, and then, oh crap, I looked at next week's schedule. Oh my God, it's Bills-Bengals. That's the match I was going to use. So I may or may not have the Bengals in the thumbnail of these videos for this week and next week. But like I said, there's a lot that could change next week. So we'll see when that happens. Y'all don't care about that stuff. Y'all care about the predictions. Let's get to it. Texans at Panthers. I think the Texans are going to continue their ways. Panthers are still yet to get a win. It's a big-time matchup because of the number 1 versus number 2 overall pick, Bryce Young versus C.J. Stroud. I think I'm going to stick with the Texans. Rams at Cowboys. I would really like it if the Rams were to win this matchup because they've been in the last 2 weeks matchups, and the Cowboys are coming off a bye. But I think I'm just going to make the smart pick and go with the Cowboys. Next, the Vikings at the Packers. I'm a Packers fan. I am biased. No matter how much this past month of Packers football has made me want to pull my hair out and yell at the TV, I got to stick with the Packers. So, stick with the Packers. Next, Saints at Colts. I'm going to pick the Colts. Both of these teams are it's similar, not similar. With the Colts, they obviously don't have Anthony Richardson for the rest of the year, but they've played with passion these past couple of games. And even this Browns game, you could argue they should have won, but a lot of questionable things happened towards the end of that game, but ultimately they didn't win. The Saints, the Jaguars game, they had a couple winnable situations, but there's also just a lot of sloppiness, and I didn't see that same level of passion in them as I did see in the Colts-Browns game. So I think this game is more closer than I would expect, but I'm going to stick with the Colts. Next, Patriots at Dolphins. I'm going to pick the Dolphins. I know there's a lot of narratives going around with the Dolphins and how are they a fluke team? Because if you look at the teams that they've beaten, they're teams that they should have beaten, but when it's teams that are closer to their level, they ain't really had a chance, like the Eagles and the Bills. The Patriots, by default and that standard, are not on the Dolphins level, so that's why I'm going to stick with the Dolphins winning. They're going to be looking for revenge after losing to the Eagles last week. Next, Jets at Giants, the Battle of New York. I'm going to go with the New York Jets. Jaguars at Steelers. A game, again, I think is going to be a very good game. I think this is probably the most difficult game of the week to predict. I think I'm going to go with the Jaguars. The Steelers have won games they shouldn't win. I think a lot of people agree with that. The Jaguars have won games that they should have won. And like I said, I think this is going to be the closest game of the week. But I'm going to stick with the Jaguars. But if the Steelers won, I would not be surprised. Next, Falcons at Titans. The Falcons have lost 2 very close games. The Titans did not lose last week because they didn't play last week. And the week before, they were lost in the UK to the Ravens. I think that, again, this is a very close game, but the Titans do not have Ryan Tannehill. And they'll be putting Malik Willis and Will Levis. I was trying to think it out. Staggering minutes at quarterback. The Falcons might need to do that because that's how a lot of fans feel about Desmond Ridder. Again, I think this is a closer game. This potentially could be Derrick Henry's last game as a Tennessee Titan. A lot is going on in this game. They're also wearing the retro Oilers, so I think I want to stick with the Titans. They also do better at home than they do on the road. And I don't know if they consider that UK game a home or a road game for them. Next, Eagles at Commanders. I'm going to pick the Eagles. I know that the Eagles lost their first loss last year to the Commanders, but I don't remember. I think that was a home game for the Eagles, and obviously the Eagles already beat the Commanders at home this year, but, I'm trying to use my mind a little bit, but I'm just going to stick with the Eagles. This is an easy pick. Browns at Seahawks. I think I'm going to go with the Seahawks. Change it up a little bit. I always say, anytime I pick the Seahawks, they lose. Anytime I don't pick the Seahawks, they win. This feels like one of those matchups that will be the case. Next, Ravens at Cardinals. I will give credit to the Ravens. In last week's predictions, I was like, everything is leaning toward the Lions winning this. And I don't like picking the Lions. So I will pick the Lions because I think it was the smart pick. But if the Ravens win, I will give them credit. And I'll be thankful for it. And the Ravens spanked that ass. So I'm going to give the credit to the Ravens. I should have picked them last week. I didn't. I'll take that L. But I appreciate y'all winning. And I'm going to pick the Ravens this week as they face the Cardinals, who may or may not have Kyler Murray out there. But the Ravens look like a respectable team. And as a lot of people were saying, Lamar is playing MVP level football. Next, Chiefs at Broncos. A game that we just saw not last week, but the week before last. But this time around, it is in Denver, Broncos country. Do not ride because you beat my fucking Packers last week. I will take the Chiefs. Again, it's just the easy prediction. Now, I just said Jaguars-Steelers is probably the hardest game to predict, and then I forgot about this game. The game I have in the thumbnail of this video. The Bengals at 49ers. The 49ers have lost 2 in a row after being the greatest team of all time for the whole first 2 months of the season. And they don't know who's going to be at quarterback this week. The Bengals coming off a bye, hopefully being healthy. I think it would be nuts if the 49ers lost 3 in a row. But that's just kind of what the NFL is. So I'm going to predict the Bengals to win this matchup. The Sunday night game, a matchup I feel at the beginning of the season was questionable. And now, especially looking at it, is especially questionable. The Chicago Bears at the Los Angeles Chargers. I've always got a little bit of bias towards the Chargers. I don't think I picked them last week, but I actually do think I picked them last week against the Chiefs. I'll go look, just so I'm not talking out of my ass. I did not. I picked the Chiefs. I apologize. I'm going to pick the Chargers. If you lose to the Bears, you're going to have to start questioning some things, and changes will need to be made. Y'all don't have the best record right now. You are spending a lot of money on your team. Like I said, questions will need to be asked. And then last but not least, Monday Night Football. The Las Vegas Raiders, who were just on Monday Night Football 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, because they played the Packers. And the week after was Cowboys, Chargers, and this week was Vikings, 49ers. Good math, Austin. I don't like picking the Lions. The Raiders were not that impressive against the Bears. I think I'm going to make the smart pick and pick the Lions. It is in Detroit. Last week's game was not in Detroit, so I'm going to pick the Lions. I don't want to, but I will. And that is it for Shooting the Breeze. Like I said, this is probably the new format, at least for the rest of the year, while the NFL is going on. We'll start with some NBA hot topics, talk about a little bit, whatever the main highlight of the wrestling week is, and then we'll wrap it up with my NFL predictions. So, yeah, that was a rough draft. I'm going to go wipe my nose, try to get healthy. It'll be couple of days before I see y'all again, but hopefully we can all stay safe. Thank you for watching the video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.